Okay, we're live. I was sitting here at lunch with my friend Gene, and today's May 15th, 2021, and we were talking about a little bit about the plane crash there on in October of '77, and Gene was good enough to go over this diagram, and he hand drew it himself. Took him a little while to remember, but didn't take too long. So Gene's got it kind of sketched out here, and I'm not going to waste too much video footage here. We're going to go ahead and let Gene describe where everybody was and the events of that night. So take it away, Gene.
All right. Of course, you can tell I'm not a graph artist. I'm just, this is rough. Starting out here, which would have been a cockpit, front of the plane, and the pilots, the two pilots. And then there was a bathroom behind the pilots. There was a barricade door there, which you go in and out of. The pilots do. And on this side was a galley, Coca holders and beer and food stuff in the galley. And on this side of the plane there was a couch that would seat 4 people with seat belts for 4. Across from the couch was a table where 2 people could sit, and then 2 chairs, 2 chairs, 2 chairs, 2 chairs, 2 seats, airplane seats, of course. And in the back of the plane there was a table with 4 excuse me, got a horse in my throat. 4 seats where 4 people could sit. That's where we played poker all the time. Across from that table was a single table where 2 people could sit. And then in the back of the plane there was a little 8 horsepower little John engine motor that run and gave you when the main engines were off, it gave you electrical power, hydraulic power and stuff. And across from that was a little room with storage. And in between these 3 rooms, how we entered and exited the plane, not through doors on the side. Normally, this plane was set up that there would be a under the plane, a ramp would come down, and steps were on it. And that's how we would come into the plane. Kevin Elson was sitting at the front of the couch. Gary and Alan were on the couch also next to Kevin Elson. Across from them was Steve Gaines and Dean Kilpatrick. Ronnie Van Zant had taken 2 sleeping pills that morning, and he had to go to sleep. He was sleepy, so I laid him on the floor between a little table that was in front of the couch, and Kevin and Alan and Gary could set their feet up on the table, and Ronnie could lay down there, and he went completely zonked out, unconscious from them sleeping pills. That way people could go to the galley, and not bump into him, or go to the bath, or go to the pilot, or whatever. And then the first 4 sets of seats, 2 seats and 2 seats, Cassie and Billy were sitting here, and I can't recall who was on the other side. Leon, I think Leon was in one of these seats. Artemis was behind him, sitting here, and the other crew members, and we had an extra seat because JoJo had been fired, and so there was a speechwriter, not a speechwriter, but a freelance writer that came on the plane and had taken JoJo's seat. And so the other crew members we had were in the other seats, and Ron Eckerman always played poker back there. Eckerman was sitting in one of these seats, with Craig Reed was sitting in one of these. I would have been sitting in one of these seats if I would have made it back to my seat. And other crew members, the remaining crew members, were sitting in these other seats. I can't recall who at that time was sitting in which seat. Only the band members I know where they were sitting at. And right before we hit the ground, when I went back up to the cockpit to cuss the pilots out, I noticed we wasn't going to make the feel that they were trying to make. Make a little story for you quick. They had put in everybody's mind and my mind that we were going to make a belly landing. So everybody on the plane was anticipating us making a belly landing with the plane. So the third time I went up there to cuss them out, I saw we wasn't gonna make the field. So only me and the two pilots at that time knew we wasn't gonna make the field. And so I ran back, grabbed Ronnie up off the floor, and stuck him between Alan and Gary, pushed him in there, forced him in there. He was so grogged out, he didn't know what was going on. Wanting to fight, what the hell am I doing messing with him? He's got to get some sleep. And I forced him in there and put a seatbelt on him. I said, the plane's crashing, man, put your head down. And he bucked up, you know, he wanted, hell, don't be messing with me, man. I got to get some damn sleep. I said, the plane's crashing, man. I slapped him and gave him a pillow. I said, put your head down. And about that time, somebody said, trees, and we started hitting the trees and, you know. So I tried to run back to my seat and only had 150 feet before the plane hit the ground. So I didn't make it back to my seat. Right about here where the plane tore apart and ripped open, and this section veered away from the fuselage, that's where I went through the fuselage and ended up under the engine. That was causing us the problems. That's where I ended up, and nobody found me for a couple of hours. And when they set Billy Powell on the edge of the plane, a wing, this wing was tore off back here 150 feet back. This wing was still intact, and they set Billy on the wing, and I crawled out from under it an hour and a half, 2 hours later. And Billy hollered and said, come help Gene. And then that's when they found me. And then the rescue started going on, you know, and it was getting the people out of the plane.
So the fuselage broke open in this area right here, and then that's kind of where you were, and then you flew out of there under the wing, and
yeah, this is obviously not correct.
Right, that's correct. The way it looked after it hit.
This tail section ripped open and drifted away from the fuselage. All this up here was crushed into the big old trees and stuff, and this section was tore off back here, and these two wings were tore off 100 feet. I'd have to see the report to know, but they were tore off back here in the woods from the trees. And this wing was still somewhat intact, and the fuselage twisted over this way and opened up in a couple of spots. It opened up, and this one back here would have been the only one. This is where the three guys that got out of the plane early, Artemis, Mark Frank, I think, and Steve Lawler, had went through this opening, which was only just a narrow opening. They had to squeeze through it to get through it. And for me to go through there up under that wing, it's unheard of. And I was the only person thrown out of the plane.
And so you were underneath the very wing where the actual motor had the issues.
Yeah, the right,
engine.
The right engine. Where they thought the motor had the issues. Yeah. They thought it was a magneto.
And just to wind it up, Gene, what was the last thing that you remember Ronnie saying before the plane went down? The last words that you remember he spoke?
I'm not gonna say on this camera, but man, don't be with me. I gotta get some sleep, you know. And he was trying to get up, and I didn't know that he unsnapped his seatbelt until I saw the seatbelt set when they cut the people out. They had to cut Alan's, Gary's, and Kevin Nelson's seatbelt to get them out because they were kind of like upside down. And so those three seatbelts were cut. And when I saw those four seatbelts, the third seatbelt wasn't cut. So I knew then Ronnie unsnapped the seatbelt. He possibly stood up. I don't know that. I'll have to ask Kevin Nelson one day. But if he'd have left the seatbelt snapped, he'd probably still be alive, but who knows. And the last words he said was, you know, don't be messing with me, man. I gotta get some sleep, man. Don't be, what you doing, you know, and then trees, but then it was all over.
Okay, Gene. Well, hey, thanks for this drawing, and I think that kind of clears things up and for anybody that might be wondering, and we really appreciate this, Gene. It's been a long time, like 46 years, so that's pretty good recall for that long a time.
I'm surprised I can remember all of that, but you can't forget it.
Yeah.
I can't forget. I think about it every night. I see it every night.
Thank you very much, Gene.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.